Hey everyone, welcome to Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a pretty standard chapter that you'll find in most textbooks, just a general intro to the topic. So here we take a look at an overview of industrial organizational psychology. What is it? Takes a look at what they call a scientist practitioner model, which is something that I've practiced myself throughout my HR career. It's that combination of let's not just do research for research's sake, but let's look to see, what's needed out there in the field and how do we apply it and how do we use it and, do something useful with it. So your text talks about that a little bit about training, general timeline, a bit of a history of IO psychology, as well as a Canadian perspective. And this is one of the things that I mentioned in the intro to the class. One of the reasons I like this textbook is it will make references back to Canadian contributions. Now, you will find as you take a look at the timeline and how your text talks about the contributions of IO psychology, over a certain time span, that the contributions seem to be heavily weighted to the U.S. And that's actually pretty much indicative of how the discipline has grown over the years. It started off, really in the U.S. and grew stronger in the U.S. than it did in Canada. Canada is still behind in many ways compared to the dollars that are spent down in the U.S. on IO psychology, training and development, and those sorts of areas. So we have some examples that are here that are relevant, and at least that keeps us thinking that Canadians are involved. Unfortunately, just not to the extent that we see down south of the border. And then the chapter finishes off talking about just some trends in IO psychology. Now, again, the nice thing about this text is it's a relatively new text. So when we talk about trends, they're actually still trends. It's not something that's from a text 10, 15 years ago where the trend has come and gone. So that's sort of it for this chapter. I'll be blunt and honest with you guys, as you'll quickly find out I tend to be. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 tend to be a bit on the dry side. It's an intro chapter, and Chapter 2, when we get to it, is on scientific methods, which you may have covered in another class. I'd be surprised if you hadn't. But we have to cover it just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, particularly as applies to IO Psych. So take a look. Take a look through your textbook. My suggestion is, by the way, read the chapter first before you go into the site and go through the material there. Make sure that each week as you hit the chapter, little reminder, be looking at the course outline. Make sure that you have any assignment or discussion due dates in your own personal calendar so you know when they're due. And other than that, I hope you enjoy the chapter. Drop me an email or a text or a phone call if there's anything that comes up that you're having trouble with and I can give you a hand with. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.